launch team wishes you good luck and Godspeed.
Space Monkeys, blasting off with Dr. Alessandro Palombo. With a PhD in administrative law and master's in global regulation of markets, he specializes in legal tech. He's the founder of Jur, a project that's looking to create a network state for the digital economy. Ale, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jay. I'm very glad to be here today with you.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept and seems like a very, very complicated to bring legal framework onto the blockchain. I just want to kind of start broadly here. What would you say is the purpose of law and justice systems within national jurisdictions as they stand today?
It's a large topic that is enrooted within societies. And I mean, in general, the scope of law or justice systems should be to ensure a peaceful and proper coexistence between individuals in a specific territory. And this is pretty much the need, the basic need upon which hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago, the initial legal systems were created. So in general, probably I would say enabling, civil and peaceful coexistence within societies. And maybe along the centuries, this concept evolved, and now probably we want to ensure also the happiness and the satisfaction of the citizens, right? So the legal system is in general, made for protecting the rights and somehow also imposing some duties in order to ensure, that we can all live together in a positive way.
And what happens to a society without a legal system? What happens in a lawless society, if you can even call it society still?
If we want to simplify, even the current, crypto industry, you can see two complete opposite, possible futures for this industry. One direction could be actually inspired by the principle of the total unregulation. So a sort of, we can imagine this kind of future as a sort of Wild West where there are no rules of sort. And somehow, to a certain extent, it's like partially it is today. Mm-hmm. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, Jay, maybe there is the 1984 Orwell vision of a kind of invasive statal authority in affecting your life and over-regulating, for example. Right. So these are if we want to simplify, to answer to your question, I think we can see these two extremes, which is, from one side, a kind of, let's say, a vision based on anarchy, a sort of Mad Max, if you want to visualize it with a movie. And on the other side, there is a 1984, vision. Okay. What we believe at Jur is that we need a middle ground. We need something in the middle between the two opposites. And in this middle ground, we see the emergence of private forms of legal systems and private forms of regulation in general. And this is what we somehow are building, because you asked me about, what is a society without legal systems. In general, there is no society without law, right? It would be società civile law, so EBUs. This is what in the ancient Rome it was said, at least. So, and somehow, I believe that it is partially true, because if we don't agree on even if we don't agree on a basic form of social contract, it's hard to imagine a coexistence. But this is what interests me and us a bit more, which is, how do we apply these concepts that are really abstract to the current, let's say, Web3, industry, and in how we want to concretely provide value in this vertical for the future of this industry and the society in general.
You said there something about like private legal systems. Does this have anything to do with the network state jurisdiction?
From an historical perspective, the concept of state, at least as we know it for today, it's relatively new. Without going into too many details, it's one of the possible ways for organizing and, for example, creating rules and creating also forms of justice or dispute resolution in case two people or two companies disagree. It's not the only way for asking for a fee that currently is named taxation from the citizens or from the users of this system. So what I'm bringing on the table is that the private legal systems is an interesting topic that partially already exists. You might have heard of arbitration. Arbitration is a system for solving disputes. The concept of arbitration is pretty ancient. In general, it's an alternative to the remedy of the service provided by public courts. How does it work? Essentially, let's say that you and I, we will have any kind of disputes regarding an agreement. We can agree, essentially, that our dispute is going to be solved or settled by a professional, and that professional is a private professional that is not appointed by any public authority.
Okay.
Which is the relevant part, Jay, on this.
Yes.
The relevant part is that the arbitrator will decide and will issue an award which, according to the legislation of around 168 countries in this precise moment where we speak, according to those legislation, the decision will be legally binding. What does it mean? That today the states already enable you with your private autonomy, because today already the state recognizes to you as a citizen a sphere of private autonomy.
Okay.
Today already tell you, hey, if you want, you don't have to use my services. If you want, you can use the service provided by reputable, private, let's say, wise decision makers.
Yeah.
Clearly, this is the simplified explanation. There are some constraints and blah, blah, blah. But in the last decades, at least, big companies already de facto leverage a kind of stateless system. Why? Because they create very, very long agreements, for example, for a transnational, deal between two Fortune 500 companies.
Sure.
They already create a kind of super long agreement, and they say, in case of dispute, we use arbitration. So in that specific case, there is a seat of arbitration, for example, in Paris before the ICC, which is one of the most famous arbitration centers in the world. But de facto, the enforcement of the decision rarely requires the intervention of a local court. Very often, spontaneously, the losing party will actually adhere and execute the arbitration award. So today, besides the concept of network state, or for the digital economy, or besides what we are building, there is already in doctrine something that is named and defined as lex mercatoria, or new lex mercatoria, which is a merchant law, which is potentially stateless. So this is where what we are building starts. And this is a bit the root of our vision. And this is why we are so excited, and we got on board well-renowned, investors, advisors in the Web3 and not only space, including Tim Draper, and we will have a couple of more important announcements in the next few weeks. So what we are doing is creating an autonomous jurisdiction, and somehow this can be seen to a certain extent as a kind of autonomous legal system. And why it's exciting and why it's needed, most importantly, because if you look at the current state of the art, there is a kind of huge, let's say, chasm between the offline jurisdictions and the digital economy, or Web3 in particular. You can see that in every minor detail. When you, for example, have, wherever you are based.
Toronto, Canada.
Oh, yeah. Canada is a, general place that favors innovation, but still, even in Canada, I know that the time for getting a judgment from a local court, it's pretty long. It's above 2 years, if I'm not wrong. I was talking with the Canadian lawyers a few months ago. And I'm just doing an example to you, because I'm just trying to provoke you. If you have an issue regarding an NFT, are you really going before a local court in Canada to get the dispute solved?
Not at all.
No. It won't work. And I could continue with many examples.
I really love listening to you talk about this, but maybe we could give our audience just a little bit of history on the project. I saw that originally you launched this project on VeChain.
So we launched it in 2019 on VeChain, and at that time we focused on blockchain-based arbitration, and in general in decentralized dispute resolution. So you can consider that at that time the decision was made on the basis of, the willingness to stay very close to, we were focusing on enterprise adoption. VeChain was at that time particularly oriented on enterprise adoption. The ecosystem was somehow emerging, and we joined. And we shipped actually a decentralized dispute resolution platform. And we got on that platform also, we made a kind of record, but essentially we got 2 persons utilizing the platform for essentially through a smart legal contract for guaranteeing a sale of a car. It was a Land Rover Defender, by the way, for worth 10,000 euro.
Nice.
And they used actually a utility token for somehow guaranteeing the transaction. And in case something was wrong, there would have been potentially a fully decentralized dispute resolution system that will stay in Jur as a kind of R&D section. And after that, we built our arbitration platform, which is a legally binding, which is a proper arbitration procedure. So just to give you an idea, when we talk about arbitration, we talk about a system for solving disputes that can eventually even be 100,000, 1 million, or $5 million worth. And when we talk about other systems, it's a different, target market.
Right. But the key of the arbitration, as you mentioned before, is that this is recognized in, I think you said 163 countries.
Well, 168 to be precise, but because there has been an international standard developed since, mid-20th century. And then the name is in the New York Convention. So essentially many states at the time, a few states at that time met and agreed into, a kind of a standard of arbitration law. And since then, more and more countries actually joined this kind of, accepted to apply on a local level that standard. And currently, a similar standard essentially is applied in 168 jurisdictions.
Right.
Which de facto creates, it's like if this is a kind of requirement for what we do. Because in the end, it's like if this is a kind of offline version or offline legal infrastructure that enables Jur to rise as a digital jurisdiction.
So you created this arbitration service on VeChain. How did you get over here to Polkadot?
So in general, bear markets are always tough. So as I often say, we actually had a tough, hard time for quite a long time. So we were not in the economic position to do what we needed to do or wanted to do for a bit of time. At the same time, the vision ecosystem got evolved into a direction that was not ideal for Jur, and we got in touch and exposed to Polkadot as an ecosystem and as a technology. And we decided to make an upgrade. It's a pivot, but de facto, it's a true upgrade, and we decided to expand the project from dispute resolution and blockchain-based arbitration into something different and larger. And we decided to expand it into the Web3 governance area. And this process actually somehow, when you start this kind of design processes, there are a few elements that you need to sit down and consider. Often you need to think in terms of first principle with a first principle approach, because in these fields the unknown are many, and then we actually came back to the original idea of Jur, which was exactly building an autonomous jurisdiction. This was the idea of day one, and we found in Polkadot the right technology, and interoperability is the key word that somehow makes us extremely excited. And at the same time, from a strategic perspective, we validated, and we've been working since a while at this point with several projects of the space. You will see in the next few weeks also, some communication on these.
Yeah.
And there is a need for governance in general. There is a big need in the ecosystem. It's non. There are a few gaps, quite large, to be filled, and we saw an opportunity to create reciprocal value.
Mm-hmm.
We have been able to get the backing from Skytel in Ventures, with Mark joining as advisor, and since then the things got extremely accelerated, and I'm very happy of this new direction. The entire team is extremely excited. We are iterating really fast, and you will see also in this autumn quite consistent progress.
I am proud to say I have applied, and it appears that I will receive some sort of NFT passport that you guys are minting on the Moonbeam chain. What's going to happen with that passport, and is Moonbeam going to be home for Jur?
Thanks for joining us in this first, let's say, pre-constitutional NFT passport. So yes, we are going to release this NFT passport very soon. Mm-hmm. So we decided to use Moonbeam for now, because it was the easiest way we could use in the short term for creating this initiative. Let me tell you, this is just this is not the full citizenship that will be available when the Jur Network will be available.
Okay.
This is an initiative for creating a first participation and sense of belonging within Jur.
Yes. With
your NFT passport, you will be able to visualize a passport, and you will see in a bit that you can visualize it, and there will be it will contain several pages. And the concept of this product is to enable you to collect stamps and stickers on these passports. So it will be, this NFT is going to evolve with you, so that your story, the participation in the community of Jur will be somehow recorded. Mm. And the spirit of this initiative is not economic. The spirit is to create a first sense of belonging between citizens, in this case, of this new digital jurisdiction, and why not eventually digital country. Yeah. And as we grow, the same NFT passport will grow with you. This functionality of storing stickers and stamps is just the first one. Mm-hmm. I'm really happy to tell you that by Q4 of this year, we will release the Jur Network.
Okay, so if anybody wants to become a citizen of this project, they can sign up right now for the NFT. I'll just put the link below there. It's really simple. You just add a Moonbeam address. People can become a citizen, and then you had this concept of limited liability identity.
This will be connected also with the citizenship in the final version of Jur, but there is a huge problem in general in crypto, which is nobody is really, responsible or liable, especially in case of pseudonymous economy, which is a concept in which I strongly believe. Mm. Still, the problem of responsibility and trust is huge. For sure, reputation will play a role. Absolutely, yes. But we have a complementary proposal eventually. In a technical way, we want to enable you, in one click, to create the equivalent of a limited liability company.
Okay.
Probably with less than $1. And you can create as many limited liability identities you want, eventually in a pseudonymous way. So essentially, we want to enable you to stake a certain, let's say, collateral guarantee, which is a multi-purpose collateral guarantee, for example, 5,000 USDCs, and you can operate and, for example, contribute in a DAO, or you can be part of a metaverse.
Right.
And at that point, you are trustable, not because you are you, and we know your real name and your real address, and not because we can enforce a decision in Canada, in Toronto, but rather because you can use the jurisdiction of Jur and enforce the decision in one instant on chain on your capital trust. Mm-hmm. So this is the concept of the limited liability identity, which, as we envision, should enable a huge experimentation in areas that today were not conceived. And I think it's a concept that will evolve in different directions, and all of them are quite interesting for ensuring better ways of cooperating in a digital, let's say, space at all the possible levels. So this is the concept of LLI.
Fascinating. Another concept I saw is the Jur working groups.
What we are going to do is to create environments where experts, mainly legal experts or founders or digital entrepreneurs, can meet and can agree on contractual standards. Today are legal contracts. Tomorrow they will be Ricardian or smart legal contracts. So you can see at the end point will be a sort of Wikipedia where instead of the pages, there will be standard contracts. And you can use them for free. If you want, you can donate. In that case, the donation will probably go directly to the DAO members that will maintain that specific contract standard.
Yeah.
We envision legislative periods of 12 months where the working group essentially approves, and tomorrow the DAO approves and maintain the standard. And just to give you an example, which is super simple, I think we all hate NDAs. NDAs are non-disclosure agreements they are not very useful in most of the cases, but you still need to read them. So why don't we create rather a single standard we all agree upon? And instead of having every single time they need to read the NDA, we can simply utilize the standard and sign it. This would be much simpler. Clearly, we don't want to state that we can standardize the entire set of legal agreements or even economic relationships in the world. This is clearly not possible,
right.
But there is a good percentage of contracts that present high contractual similarity, which means that they are homogeneous between themselves.
Sure.
And there is a good portion of contracts that, it's not of high value. And that's the sub-segment of economic relationships and contracts we want to standardize. We have the first working group starting next week. It will regard the NFT terms of sale agreement. As you know, in the NFT space, nobody utilizes the right legal template. And there is a lot of excitement, and it's simply something needed. So we are answering to a huge demand and need that today is uncovered. Because, again, the problem is not, in paying the right lawyer and the right professional for assisting you. The problem is in the transaction cost of having every single time to negotiate, read the agreement, and so forth and so on. Yeah. So this is not just creating a legal contracting platform. This is more creating a platform or an infrastructure for creating the right consensus behind contractual balances for, the future way of managing economic relationships.
Yeah, I can see projects that are already trying to be compliant. I can see this saving them loads of time and effort and money.
Loads of time.
And then I can also see projects that are completely skirting compliance, more of them feeling comfortable coming on board, or maybe they lack the expertise or money to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
Avoiding the headaches of the future.
Also, from a user perspective, for example, the user that interacts with a specific project that, is issuing the next NFT collection, it's important also for the user and in general, let's say the subject that we could consider the consumer to have a reliable legal infrastructure, because in general the proper legal infrastructure creates a higher level of transparency, and with a higher level of transparency and awareness, everyone is more protected without slowing down progress. So that's the key message that I personally, relate the most. So we are not trying to bring more rules. No, we are trying to create the infrastructure for agreeing on simplified rules that can eventually create an improvement and even, to make our Web3 relationships smoother and more efficient. Keep an eye on Jur.io. We will have soon a dedicated page on our site for this initiative. And you will see a series of working groups starting off in the next weeks.
Fascinating stuff. Just one more thing I'm curious about before we go here. Resolving disputes. How are you going to manage? How are you going to manage this?
What we are building is using our current products and specifically the Jur Arbitration platform. But what we are building on Polkadot is a general and generic underlying protocol that will be able to host different service providers. So this is very important, and I want to emphasize this point, even if it's a bit technical. So our infrastructure will enable different even types of providers that might include also offline public bodies to join the protocol and issue qualified decisions. And at the same time, it will also allow decentralized online dispute resolution systems to connect. So our vision is not going to provide a centralized, platform or whatever solution that we as Jur will build. Our vision is to build a general protocol. As Jur, we have already the technology and the arbitrators for offering one of the alternatives. Our vision is to do, experiment and support the initial cases with our own platform. But as the system grows, we expect multiple providers to join. Everyone will have his own characteristics and will be able to interface with our network in a trustable way, which will be, of course, in line with the Web3 principles of, making sure that the interests and the quality of the service is respected. This is exactly what we are going to do. In more simple terms, you will find in Jur every 1 day.
Yeah.
Of course, this will take a long time. It's a long-term project. This site. 1 day you will find on Jur every type of dispute resolution solution, going from mediation to conciliation to arbitration, managed in different ways. In the Lightpaper, you can find a preliminary explanation. In the white paper version 1, you will be able to read a more advanced version.
This has been a fascinating conversation. I've learned so much, and I really appreciate you coming up here to tell us. I've heard this guy, Gavin Wood, he's really interested in governance. Have you spoken to him at all about this?
Well, Jay, what can I say? Gavin is for sure interested in the subject of governance, right? So I think, for sure, interesting conversations. I heard him mentioning a few times also the concept of digital nations. So what I can tell you is that I see a lot of potentiality for dialogue and maybe cooperation in the future with Gavin. And ultimately, every blockchain or every parachain or even every DAO should be an autonomous state, right? If an entity is truly autonomous and stateless, well, in the end, it's like if the autonomous entity, it is the state.
Yeah.
There must be a state, right? So, this is a kind of theoretical question, but I'm just dropping this down en passant because I think, this is probably going to be one of the major, topics for the next 2-3 years of the industry. And this is why Jur exists, because I have a series of well-documented ideas and examples about the fact that it's very easy to talk about decentralization, even in a technical way, but everyone forget very often that as long as there is a foundation or a company in an existing offline jurisdiction, as long as the miners are subject to regulations or blah, 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 as long as offline states have specific regulations that rightfully and legitimately, try to protect at best their citizens. I think that there is a lot to do in this space, and what we envision for day 2 of Jur is a kind of also potentially a jurisdiction that can offer some kind of regulatory, perimeter within which, Web3 and the digital economy in general essentially can be regulated in a way which is more, in line with us, with the people that today are in this industry, right?
Absolutely. Alessandro, thank you very, very much for coming on the show. I hope we get to talk to you again soon. Best of luck with all the development over the next 3 quarters.
Thanks a lot, Jay, for hosting this interesting chat. I love your content and will be very glad to come back to on this channel for discussing furtherly the Jur progress. And a warm regards to all the audience, and let's catch up soon.